So that's another reason why they won't hold someone like Les Wexner accountable. He was not the head of it. And so until there's an investigation into the people behind Epstein, including Wexner, and justice there, I think most of what we're going to end up seeing is going to be superficial. And maybe more will be admitted or discovered in these Epstein files, but don't expect the government to necessarily do anything about it. Right. That's the unfortunate part, right? And it can be kind of like dark to hear that, but the reality is Whitney's not trying to gaslight the people. She's letting you know, don't expect the government to go after these powerful people that have mob connections, etc. So Les Wexner, he shows up and he says, I don't remember. He knows that he is protected.
So here's the thing about Les Wexner. Les Wexner is a philanthropist, and that means that he gives to charities that are worthwhile, but only worthwhile to him, which is the destruction of the world, because he has a demon in him, and all the demons want to do is destroy the world. That's what they did before the world was here. So it says the Spirit of God hovered above the waters, and the earth was void and without form. The earth was void and without form. It had already been here a long time, but other civilizations, not of human race, but humanoid races, like the Atlantis, the Atlanteans, which is where I live in Atlanta. They destroyed the world because they are demonic in nature. The Atlanteans were incarnations, just like now. Like Les Wexner is an incarnation of a demon named something Dharma or something. I don't remember the name of it. That's what it is.
They say. But obviously, in the COVID era, we became a lot more skeptical of those types of quote unquote philanthropies. And obviously, Bill Gates, as well as Epstein himself, as particularly revealed by some of these new releases, but it was known before, have an outsized interest in eugenics and also transhumanism, which is the modern rebranding of eugenics, even some. Pause right here. So this was another thing we talked about in the files. There were a number of emails that referenced eugenics, whether it was from Jeffrey Epstein, whether it was from Bill Gates, like back and forth conversations. It's very real reality. And if you want to look back into some of the history of eugenics, like at least here in the United States, a lot of people don't know this and they're not happy when you bring it up, especially here in the Boston area. But Harvard University used to practice eugenics. The Harvard back in the day is not the Harvard you know of today, but they used to practice that.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry about that. I forgot to bring you guys, but I wasn't gone long enough to worry about it. Let's roll. Gate. Navigate. Try not to wait.
It's still around. So I think Elon kind of like broke the seal open with this when he said we need white families to have more babies and stuff like that. So I mean, some people say it out in the open, some people say it
Eugenics.
behind the scenes via email.
The people that used to run the British
Transhumanism.
Eugenics Society, like Julian Huxley, authored texts in the mid 20th century talking about how transhumanism was the future of eugenics, and this is how they'd sell it to a new generation. These people are intimately involved.
So right up here, this is downtown Dallas, Georgia. Right up here, there is the police department, and next door is the Masonic Lodge. So, God bless the police. God bless the Masons. But I'm at war with them. But see, I'm in a spiritual war. And so the war I'm in, the only way to win is to bless them. So God bless the police, and God bless the Masons. Now, I'm not really against the police, but the police are all Masons, is the problem. So, not just here, but everywhere. Almost everybody is associated with the Masons, just about, in one way or another. Most businesses, Chamber of Commerce, all these things are all Masonic institutions. The Lions Club, all this Masonic.
When the Clintons testify, I'm just waiting for Bill Clinton to be like, we were just business partners. I didn't really know that guy like that. No, I mean, look at all the stuff that Epstein, did for the Clintons, behind the scenes. And then she talks about like this path that was chosen, I guess, for Hillary Clinton. Again, like I said, a lot of these people are selected, and then they tell you should vote for them. Hillary Clinton was selected for the Senate too. This isn't talked about as much. She was contacted by the Senate and told to go get that seat for the Senate. She was already a shoo-in. They already decided that they wanted her. This stuff goes way back, you guys. Like, I went into a lot of the deep dive history of Hillary and Bill, like that whole relationship, and I saw it as a relationship of convenience where they would help each other out professionally, where Hillary realized she could get Bill Clinton to really go places politically, and then she would also be able to do that as well. He would become president. She would eventually become president as well, and she would be the first female president. There's a whole path laid out for that, and they're not the only ones. I mean, the Bushes laid out a whole damn plan too. I mean, these things are pre-planned. It was part of the core team that developed the concept for the Clinton Global Initiative, which is kind of like a Clinton brokered Davos, World Economic Forum style meeting. And, they passed money around to, Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar, for example, among other things. And so, Epstein was obviously very sought out in the not-profit world, arguably because he was very good at tax shelters, and a lot of these billionaires want to, get tax write-offs or not have to pay money in tax. And so, setting up these philanthropies the right way, when Epstein's background, going to his time at Bear Stearns, was in tax evasion, obviously I think that points to why they were so interested in having him be involved in setting up their nonprofits. And there's also the fact that you had Epstein, I think it was Bill Gates, wanted to talk to Epstein about getting a Nobel Prize, apparently because he had influence over the Nobel Prize Committee. So, I mean, it went even beyond nonprofits. And so a lot of this world that the public has been shown about these do-gooder nonprofits and these do-gooder philanthropists, it's, Epstein was an expert in money laundering. He also became an expert in reputation laundering for these billionaires, most of which are criminals and some of whom are provably connected to organized crime. Gotta be. And that's the ding, ding, ding. Gotta be. Because, again, when we talk about how people accumulate wealth, some people inherit that wealth. So some people that are billionaires, they inherited from their parents. But the ones that were not, people did some things to get that type of money. It's not easy to become a billionaire. It's not easy to become a millionaire either, but it's definitely not easy to become a billionaire. A lot of that is done by exploitation and people taking bribes. And as Whitney said, some organized crime as well. So this is why we say Epstein was just a puppet. And by the way, there are other Epsteins. Again, if you picture that pyramid and you look at who is ever at the top, who you envision, whether it's a CIA or Mossad or some other billionaire entity, maybe all of it, and then you see Epstein in the middle as a middleman, usually people have more than one middleman. So I have always believed that there are multiple Epsteins. And so just because they got rid of one of them doesn't mean the other ones aren't still there. Money and power really do run the world. Some people started looking into the Clintons like a long time ago, but it's not just them, right? Let's get into the next part here where she brings up the Rothschilds. So again, if we're talking about who is above Epstein, I think that's really important. We focus more on that.
Ultimately, you know, what's going on in this case is you have Epstein fronting for a broader network. And so keeping the focus on Epstein, I mean, it's important, obviously, to understand what he was doing, but we have to understand too, and what I've endeavored to show is that he was fronting for a larger group that still very much have their claws over the U.S. government. And obviously the future of the U.S. and much more. And so we should pay attention to that and also not become so distracted by searching for things in the files that we, you know, ignore the fact that, you know, for example, Israel, who was very involved with Epstein and allegedly used contraband and blackmail to manipulate U.S. policy, has been trying for decades to get the U.S. to go to war with Iran on that behalf. That could very well happen. So let's not forget to pay attention to other things and be, you know, fall into you know, get distracted at a time when, you know, the people that Epstein helped serve, among other groups, might be finally getting what they want at a major cost for American lives and money and obviously other civilian lives.
I think that's so important that she brought it back to that point, right? That Epstein's job may be done. Again, we don't know if I don't know if Epstein is dead or alive. And I'll stand on that. I don't know. I can't say positively I know that he is. And I don't think a lot of you can either. But anyway, his job is done. But other people are still out there doing those jobs. If they weren't, then you wouldn't still have people being trafficked today.
Okay.
Right? And then on top of that, she brings it back to the geopolitics of it all. The people that Epstein was doing work for, whether it was Ehud Barak, whether it was other people in Israel, let's all remember, they're still very much running the show on foreign policy. They're still running the show with the Christian churches in America by bringing those pastors over to Israel to send them back to the U.S. to brainwash their congregation. It looks like Israel is getting what they want in so many respects because the U.S. is moving more and more ships over towards Iran, and it has now been declared that they may strike on Monday or Tuesday, per John Kiriakou, who said this recently on someone else's podcast from an insider. So the reality is, we can't get to the point where we're looking at what's in the files, but we're not looking at what's not in the files, which is the people who are over all of this, those who are still calling the shots. So we have to keep our eyes still open. A little bit more on here.
Among other things. I guess there's a lot more I could say too, but ultimately, I think there's a lot needs to be done in investigating Epstein's activities as it relates to finances. There's a lot of ties to things, various financial crises, efforts to short currencies around the world. He was a known Forex trader. He worked with a lot of currency traders and had connections to them. People like Jimmy Goldsmith, for example, and others that were referred to by the New York Times in the 90s as a cabal of currency traders that were basically destroying whole economies. And pretty much everyone in that cabal has ties to the Rothschild banking dynasty, which Epstein in these recent files acknowledge he represents. But that's quite clear that was the case. If you read my book, Robert Maxwell openly fronted for them, among other interests.
Everyone keeps asking, where did Jeffrey Epstein get his money from? Right? People keep saying, how did he get this money? How did he get wealthy? Don't forget, Les Wexner gave him money early on. Again, Lex Wexner says in the deposition, he said he was working for the Rothschilds. So when people ask, where did that money come from? Always follow the money trail, goes back to the banks. Because I don't know about you guys. I don't know anybody that is just given $100,000 or here's $1 million. Go have at it and have fun. I don't know anybody that's gonna do that. I've never heard of that. And again, what good can come from that, right? So there you go. Look what she connected it back to, the Rothschilds, who also are pro-Israel. They're Zionists. You know the whole history there that we talked about before, right?
And so if we don't follow these threads, as I've, been saying, away from Epstein and higher up, he was being...
So here's what they did was the Rothschilds, well, Lord Belafonte, which is a Rothschild, but his name is different. But he wrote a letter. I think basically Lord Rothschild is the highest, Lord Belafonte is the second. So Lord Belafonte in the 1940s wrote a letter to Lord Rothschild and said that the Jews need their own homeland. So, but what he did then was, see, the thing is a whole bunch of Satanists are pretending to be Jews so that they can be, that's why they made Israel, so the Satanists can live there and they pretend like they're Jews. Now there are some Jews there also, but really the Jews are Satanists also, because Jesus said, if you know me, you know my Father, and if you don't know me, you don't know my Father. They don't know him, so they can't worship the Father, so they have to worship another God. It's not Jesus. Jesus is the name above all names, and that's what they really worship, is the name. So their name is, if they do Yahweh, then they're worshiping the moon god or the storm god, but it's also the moon god, which is also Baal. So that's what's going on. So they made a country where the Satanists can live, and they call themselves Jews, but they are not. They are a synagogue of Satan. That's what the Bible says.
The head of the snake usually does not fall. They're usually protected. And you talk about the Rothschilds. I mean, don't forget, one of the things we brought up with Venezuela is that they were one of those countries that didn't have one of those Rothschilds banks. That's important for people to know. A lot of times when corporate media tells you about conflict, especially if it's war conflict, they don't really get into the money part. They don't get into the banks, or they don't get into the things that, like this person is doing this for the working class. They don't want to tell you, oh yeah, everyone in that country may have health care. Same thing with Southern Cuba, right? Like everyone may have health care, etc. They don't want to mention those things. So they just say there's dictatorship there, or they say they don't have democracy. And if you don't look further than that, you'll believe it too. But the point of all this is, and I was telling a friend of mine about this the other day, because she has not seen the files. And I was telling her that the common misconception that people have is that the Epstein files mainly contain information that is about just trafficking. There's information in there about that, but there's also information in there about eugenics, cannibalism,
9/11.
banks, banking, right? Like rituals. Like there's a lot of different things that are in there. And I feel like those pieces that I just told you about, corporate media is not touching at all. Corporate media isn't really talking about like, oh, let's get into the money laundering. Let's get into everything that Whitney just told you right there, and that's not even half of it. they're not talking about those things. So when she says those things or anyone says it, corporate media will say, well, that person
So
is a
the reason why I'm making these videos is because everyone asked me, how did I learn all the stuff that I know? So this is how I learn it, because I listen to things like this.
says, doesn't go with
You don't have to
the
listen to this is Sabby Sab is the name of the thing, the name of the channel, Sabby Sab. You can find it on YouTube. She's making this video about Wendy. So I watch them both. I watch Sabby, I watch Wendy, I watch Sean Atwell.
Hello, Donald.
I watch them all.
Come and play with us, Donald. Look, we have a friend for you.
Oh, this is part of the video. No, this gotta be a commercial. What's going on?
Eerie, right? Isn't it weird?
What the freak was
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
It's
know
weird.
it
I
was going
know.
on.
Casey said it's some scary shit.
Thought it was a
I know.
commercial.
Oh my god. Yeah. I don't know who made this because people share things, but they don't always tell you
Okay, so
if
somebody
they're the
just
one that
made
made
that.
it. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
The
And
Epstein Files.
again, I recommend people, if you haven't seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut, now might be a good time to watch it, where they talk about these elite people that are in these, societies, secret societies, and all this kind of stuff, and these rituals or sacrifices that they make. And once you start doing that type of thing, like, then, you're blackmailed, and then you got to do whatever they tell you to do because now they got you on camera doing some things that you shouldn't have done.
Plus, like Leslie Wexner, you get a demon that lives in you, and the demon. So there's a video of Leslie Wexner and his lawyer talking to some feds, and the lawyer told Leslie that if you say more than 5 words, I'm gonna kill you. Now that's because the thing that was talking through the lawyer was the demon that usually lives in Les Wexner. And so it can come out of him and go into someone else. And that's what it did right then. It went out of him, went into the lawyer, and then he's answering the questions instead of the demon, because the demon's really smart. So the demon couldn't be in there then. So the demon lets Leslie Wexner answer the questions to the feds. And he's stupid. So, because he's been demon possessed, so he hadn't really learned nothing his whole life, because the demon's just doing stuff, but he doesn't know anything unless the demon's in there telling him stuff. Because he didn't learn anything. He didn't need to learn anything. The demon knows everything. So he was getting away with doing stuff. And normally he's a genius because he has a demon living in him. But now when the demon comes out, he's an idiot. That's how I've noticed. When demons come out of people that are really, really smart, then the people are idiots because they didn't learn nothing because they didn't have to. Because the demons told them everything they needed to know. That's the truth. So.
One of the things I think we need to pay close attention to when it comes to the Epstein files, or Jeffrey Epstein altogether, is that we can't stop at just him. Jeffrey Epstein was basically a puppet, from what I understand. So if you saw like this pyramid chart, Jeffrey Epstein was not at the top of the pyramid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been arrested. The people at the top rarely ever go down. So Jeffrey Epstein had a boss. He was working for somebody or something else.
Wexner.
Whether it's different organizations, CIA, Mossad, or a different person, he was working for something or someone else. That's what I want you to hold on to as we get to these clips here from Whitney Webb. One of the most, powerful people next to Jeffrey Epstein was, of course, Les Wexner. He's the owner of the Limited Group, which included Victoria's Secret. For those who are not aware, Les Wexner had a lot of money. He gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney. He just testified in front of Congress. Actually, they came to him to see him in Ohio. So he didn't travel to DC. They came to see him for that deposition. He testified, And most of his responses were, I don't remember. Interesting how that works. All of a sudden, he doesn't remember. He's actually featured in Epstein documentaries, but he just don't remember. There's a couple of them. Go check them out. There's an Epstein documentary on Netflix. There's one on Hulu. So the I don't remember card is something that is played to save your own ass, basically.
Yeah.
I want you to hear what Whitney Webb said about Les Wexner being held accountable, because she gives the raw deal here, and to why he will probably not be held accountable. So she spoke with Redacted. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the show. They usually do a lot of diving into controversial issues. I guess that's how you want to describe it. I don't know what they are politically. I don't know their political ideology, but they usually dive into a lot of controversial stuff, right? And they do like these deep dives. But listen to what Whitney said here about the Les situation.
Yeah, I don't anticipate Leslie Wexner being arrested at any point. He is far too powerful, and his money is everywhere. And honestly, he has extremely deep ties to numerous officials in the Israeli government through his philanthropies. He focused pretty much the bulk of the Wexner Foundation on training up prominent figures, first in the U.S. In the Jewish community in particular, and now those Wexner fellows, essentially run AIPAC. It has an extremely close relationship with AIPAC, obviously one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the United States. And
we have to pause right there. That's the part I think many people did not know. So what's important to hold on to here is that she said he has his money in a lot of different places. Big red flag there, right? So what it means is that if you go after one entity, one organization where he has invested his money, that doesn't knock him out because he has money invested in so many other different places. So it almost seems like, this is what I was saying before, like if a billionaire like Les Wexner has invested in hospitals, and let's say maybe he has invested in, I don't know, Limited Group, right? So if you say, we need to strike against Les Wexner, everyone boycott Victoria's Secret. All right, cool. But then you also got to boycott Bath and Body Works, which I think is also still a part of Limited Group. I have to double check that. There was also a store called The Limited, which I think also may have been a part of Limited Group. But then you got to boycott all them too, right? But then he has his money in so many different buckets, it's hard to take someone like that down. And this is the reality. And people wonder, how do these people continue to grow and thrive when people are boycotting against them? Because they have money in so many different buckets. He's well connected to the AIPAC piece. Les Wexner is invested in AIPAC, the most powerful pro-Israel lobby in the United States, alongside Kufi, I would say. He's been funding his own interest. So when people wonder, where does AIPAC get all this money from? One of the people that's been donating to them is Les Wexner, and he's loaded. So when people say again, well, we got to boycott AIPAC, we got to take AIPAC down. In order to take AIPAC down, you got to stop AIPAC from getting money. That's why I tell you guys, it always goes back to the money. So we need some type of law or rule in place that would prevent individual people from being able to donate money to a lobby interest group. Let's continue on.
And the other side of his leadership training via his foundation has been with Israeli public officials who have, these relationships as a result of that with Wexner. And I doubt, given, AIPAC's influence, as well as, what you touched on earlier with Israel's role with Epstein, it just does not seem particularly likely in any capacity. And I would also refer to the fact that one of the things that will never be investigated is the role of Epstein and also Wexner in this scandal that was covered up in the mid-1990s under the Clinton administration. That's remembered today as Chinagate, but was obviously a lot larger than that. And It was a smuggling operation that utilized Southern Air Transport, which you'll remember is the CIA front that was used to smuggle drugs and weapons during the Iran-Contra era. After the Iran-Contra era, the Iran-Contra crowd utilized the same network again to facilitate Chinagate, and they used Southern Air Transport, which came into direct connection to be dominant in that same period of time, was dominated by Leslie Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein.
And now we're seeing, we knew that Bill Clinton obviously had connections with Jeffrey Epstein. Now we're seeing Les Wexner also had some type of financial ties and connection to both of the Clintons, to Bill Clinton and to Hillary Clinton. So you see what I'm saying? You see how these people, these billionaires, the Epstein class, you see how they don't have this partisan line? You see how they're not like, I am not going to work with someone who's a part of this political party. You see how they do that? Because they have class solidarity. Money talks. The one thing they all have in common is that they want to protect their wealth, even if that means taking from yours or your potential.
And they had it relocated not that far from New Albany, Ohio, just to run their cargo, ostensibly for the limited, from the Rickenbacker Airport in Ohio to Hong Kong. And people like Ohio Inspector General called it the Mayor Lansky route because he argued they were affiliated with the mob. And Columbus PD, just a few years prior, had produced a document linking Leslie Wexner to the mob and his network in the murder of the lawyer for the limited, Arthur Shapiro.
Global criminal network. Leslie Wexner having ties to the mob.
And in that document, they detailed extensive ties of Wexner to organized crime affiliates. And as I noted in my book, citing Catherine Austin Fitts, she was at an event and overheard a government official say that Leslie Wexner was one of the main launderers for organized crime cash flows in the United States. And this is something, as I've detailed in my book, that Epstein was very involved with this network that involves organized crime and intelligence, specifically in allowing them to illicitly move funds and in money laundering. And so, I mean, arguably Epstein was a front for that for Leslie Wexner. And this is stuff that they absolutely will, they just can't touch with a 10-foot pole without massive reverberations, for the national security state of the U.S., which has been beholden to this, shadow government of sorts in which Epstein operated, but he was a middleman for it.
Puppet. So again, Jeffrey Epstein, not at the top of the pyramid. As Whitney says, he was a middleman for it. And you see Les Wexner having mob ties. It's so funny. You'll see all these documentaries that are on Netflix that talks about the takedown of the 5 families, the takedown of the Philly mob, the takedown of the da-da-da. The mob is still alive and well. You just don't hear about them anymore. And that makes it even more dangerous.
Now they're all Masons.
So that's another reason why they won't hold someone like Les Wexner accountable.
They always have been, though.
He was not the head of it. And so until there's an investigation into the people behind Epstein, including Wexner, and justice there, I think most of what we're going to end up seeing is going to be superficial. And maybe more will be admitted or discovered in these Epstein files, but don't expect the government to necessarily do anything about it.
Right. That's the unfortunate part, right? And it can be kind of like dark to hear that, but the reality is Whitney's not trying to gaslight the people. She's letting you know, don't expect the government to go after these powerful people that have mob connections, etc. So Les Wexner, he's show.
So, Les Wexner lives in Ohio. High-ranking, very genius demon living in him, and he funded Jeffrey Epstein. So that's what we're learning right now.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. I'm your host, Steven. I've got Pastor Adam Fannin. Did I say that correctly, sir?
You got it. Like
Okay.
you're fanning yourself.
So the guy, Adam Fannin, that is the guy, I went to his church, and his deacons pulled guns on me. Yeah. They didn't point them at me, but they did show me them. They did show me their guns. They're like, does everybody have their gun? They took out their guns. They showed it to me. And then they started asking me questions. But he is a smart guy when it comes to the Illuminati and stuff like that. But I don't know if he's not everybody, nobody's totally for Jesus, because Jesus is on his own level. Nobody else is on that level.
Yeah, because our next topic is Palantir. I'm just trying to enforce the clock. I'm sorry to stop
So
you, Jason.
Palantir is owned by a guy named Peter Thiel.
It's been more exposed through this.
He is also a similar guy. He's been funding Jeffrey Epstein too. And he also funded J.D. Vance.
Reported on an interview with Rogan, in general, compared to the information that we had. And Thiel is the banner waver, the creator of Palantir. Now, Palantir is deeply woven into the deep state. You're an expert on Palantir. For my audience that might not know about this, might know some things, like how did Palantir start? We can cover DARPA, TIA, In-Q-Tel, their early founding in the early 2000s.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, there's so much really to Palantir. It's hard to really understand it all because it's just so overwhelming and it's just expanding by the day. I mean, these guys have like rocket fuel on their shoes because the way they just keep going upward with their profit margin and the contracts they keep getting, it's truly unbelievable. And this is something that seems to be, I don't want to say unprecedented because we saw companies like Pfizer really take advantage of this during the Biden administration, but they really are going kind of ape wild here as far as giving the keys to the kingdom to Palantir, and I mean the Trump administration as far as just giving them the whole bag of goodies here. So basically, yeah, Palantir is the surveillance state Palantir is the surveillance state is what Pfizer was to Big Pharma. It still is. It's basically like the nervous system of the surveillance state. As you mentioned, it was founded in the early 2000s with the CIA, venture capital, and actually somebody who I recently done a deep dive into, Gilman Louie, this gentleman named Gilman Louie, who was the person who actually created In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA venture capital arm. And Gilman Louie is kind of an interesting guy. He actually started off in the video game world, and he kind of understood how to take systems management and apply that to like a bigger spectrum. He saw what Peter Thiel was doing in a bunch of different elements with tech, and basically reached out to them and gave them massive amounts of money, millions of dollars. In fact, the first few years of Palantir, In-Q-Tel and the CIA were the only client that was
Right.
So that's a really interesting story. The kingmaker of kingmakers, it turns out to be this guy named Gilman Louie, because you think about how important Peter Thiel is into this whole technocratic agenda. I think a lot of people have labeled him a kingmaker, especially within the GOP. And then, of course, there's the CEO, Alex Karp, who is ironically notoriously pro-privacy. He's an interesting fellow himself, kind of an odd duck. But ultimately, what Palantir does, it has 30 different federal agency contracts, including with the DoD, CIA, FBI, IRS, Homeland Security. I mean, it's extensive. It's basically the corporate state fusion with, like we were just saying, it has, these roots within intelligence contracts, intelligence companies. And so man, it is so expansive. It has like missile defense systems, immigration enforcement, predictive policing systems. I mean, it's really insane. And then, of course, and I think it was June of 2025, Trump signed an executive order mandating federal data sharing between different agencies to build the centralized database, which combines like tax, debt, Social Security, bank, medical, immigration data. All these things existed before, but never in one digital centralized database and never with the utilization of AI.